Here.
In compliance with New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 of Public Law 1975, I hereby declare that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided, specifying that this meeting will be held on this date in the Municipal Building Council Chambers, second floor, 55 River Road, Edgewater, New Jersey. Notice of this meeting was sent to the Record and the Jersey Journal and posted in the lobby, Borough Hall, as required by law. I'd ask for a moment of silence. Councilman Vidal, will you lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no comments tonight. This time I'd like to open the meeting to the public. Mr. Henning. Everybody has 5 minutes. At the end, if we are able to respond, we'll respond, but you have 5 minutes.
All discussion being cut off, even in mid-sentence. So, I don't know who you're telling that to, but it's redundant as far as telling it to me. I'll sit down if you don't mind. When do my 5 minutes begin?
You start talking.
As soon as you start.
What?
As soon as you start.
Okay. I'm here.
Name and address.
Michael Enion, 6 Annette Avenue, Edgewater, New Jersey 07020, a resident owner in Edgewater Colony Incorporated since August 4th, 1967. Mayor, as I brought you personal attention in a private meeting with documentation, I have shown you in print what is recorded up in Bergen County with my interest in the colony. I'm the owner there. I'm one of the legitimate owners. There's some people who portray themselves as owners. Maybe they are, maybe they are not. My interest is inseparable with my house. It's unencumbered, and it is indivisible, according to the documents which you have, which I gave you in a private meeting, which showed you, and which in no way permits the borough to use its owned property, that property under the water in front of Edgewater Colony, for the borough's use to trespass upon the land of Edgewater Colony Incorporated, in which the borough has no ownership, in which I have an ownership, and whose terms are clearly enunciated in the papers which I gave you in a private meeting, and which you know, and you should have discussed with the other people, that those papers in no way allow any of the conducts that the borough and the borough attorney is engaged in trespassing from that borough-owned land upon the land of Edgewater Colony Incorporated, in which I have an inseparable, unencumbered, and indivisible interest. I've asked many, many times that action be taken to immediately remove these trespassings which go. It's a two-way trespass, and I'm here today to talk to the mayor and the council so that they can take action in their illegal conducts in trespassing from that land, in establishing bridge works onto and upon and upon my land in Edgewater Colony. I am an owner, and this is my right to object to this thing. I also object as a citizen of Edgewater. There was no referendum to the shareholders, and every shareholder has rights to this land, which they got in a court action in 1948, a long time ago. They got it for open public land and enjoyment. And every single citizen of Edgewater, it is not yours or yours or yours or yours, anybody here, to give away to anybody else. It belongs to each resident of Edgewater, and there's been no referendum. How dare you, the council, and you, the attorney, and you, the borough, whoever you are, administrator, to give it away under any terms whatsoever. You may not. So that's what I'm here to object to, that you take immediate action on that. I will be taking whatever action to take this to the very final period where it will not and cannot be allowed. And I'm also objecting, as I say, because as a citizen of Edgewater, I agree with what you and the council did in telling the NJDEP that it's our land, that it's open land and public land for the use of its citizens, and we want to grant money to which we're entitled to have because of that. And we said that, and we wrote papers. I haven't seen them yet, and I would like to get papers and see them when I come down here, of all papers submitted from this place to the colony and vice versa, to the NJDEP and vice versa. They confirmed that, and they have actually received the money. Now they decide that it's more important to get votes or whatever other reason they have in the colony to say, okay, we'd like to give some of these people particular privileges that other people up there with the same identical common stock do not enjoy. We'll give it to these people because we like to make sweetheart secret deals with these people. And I'm sick and tired of this kind of conduct. Well, we've had a bad record here of mayors, and you certainly are following right in track, Mayor, in continuing this action and not immediately ceasing it when I brought you those papers. So I strongly object, and I hope that knowledge of this will go widespread, not just in Edgewater, the borough of Edgewater, Bergen County, the state of New Jersey, but all over the nation. This kind of conduct by a borough and thing to try and continue illegal conducts for private gain at the expense of the citizens and at the expense of a disabled vet who put his life on the line, like perhaps you did not in Korea, when I did it in order to come back and enjoy my land and my home, which I bought into in August 4th, 1967, and I have all the documentation that not all of it, I've showed you some of it, some others, it's down in Washington and in other places, and it's biding its time. I want you tonight to get together and put a special item on the agenda to take action to withdraw these trespassings upon my land. It is my land, whether I have 1 share or 1,000,000th of a share or 1,000,000 shares. I am an equal owner. I am an owner by virtue of being an equal owner. I am an owner. I am an owner, and I'm objecting. And yes, you are trespassing, and I want it removed.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Your time is up.
My time is up.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Aaron.
Mary Hogan, 606 on the Cliff Avenue. At one of the previous meetings, I had brought up about money that was never put in the COA account. And after the last meeting, Greg Franz assured you that money was actually in that account. And I assure you that it's not in that account. And these are from the records from the borough. This is the COA funding account. In 2009, in the fiscal year 2098, we received $100,000 from what is now River Club. And in the fiscal year 1099, we received the additional $100,000 that they owed for affordable housing because they were not putting it on site. Then in fiscal year 2000, we received $40,000 from Hudson Cove for the 2 units they were not putting on. And we received that same year $40,000 from Ferry Plaza North because they were not putting the 2 units on site either. I draw your attention to the letter that the borough received on September 14th, 2005, which was the denying of the 3rd round COA. this borough of Edgewater. And the first 3 reasons they denied, there were 5 reasons. The first 3 was because of the River Club, of the Hudson Cove, and of the Mariners Cove, which winds up being the Ferry Plaza building, for which we have received $280,000. So not only is it not in that account, it's not, apparently, COA agrees that it's not being used for what it's supposed to be used for, and they do not have it on the reports that were given to them. In 2005, the report talked about that money and said that it was being held in escrow. And I have asked the borough clerk for where that account is, where it's being held in escrow, and where that money is. And to date, we have not come up with any solution except for Mr. Franz's statement at the last meeting that it was in that account and that I was incorrect. I beg to differ that I'm not incorrect because I have that whole account and proved it all out, and it proves to the penny, and it doesn't include that money. In addition, I see a resolution on the agenda for tonight to approve a $500,000 transfer from this account to the affordable housing at bottom of Winter EBG school. As far as I know, that property has never been approved by COA, that they are not COA units that we can take credit for. And I do not know how this council can transfer any monies from this account until that is done. My other question is, have we ever, I know we spent additional monies to get the 3rd round COA approved, but have we ever been certified? I guess Mr. Franz can answer that, or we have not been certified. So we still have not been certified. So how you can make transfers out of that account for anything except for rehabilitation, which we have done in the past, and I think we still have money that we can use for that. I don't know how you can transfer it for getting new units, and I don't know how you can transfer it for units that are not owned by the borough, that would be in a rental building. I don't think that you can do that either. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Cappuccini?
Hey, you can see if the potholes on North Front Lane could be fixed and filled, it's dangerous. While it's coming at night and I've seen it, it was a serious accident. I know when the tax map says it's a private lane, but this is a private. You own property, you don't own a piece of that, I don't own a piece of that, protect the neighbors, they don't own a piece of it. It was turned over to the town right after the Second World War, if there was ever a private road at all. The town has paid it several times already. I'm sure if you check with the borough engineer, he will tell you it's not a private road, but the town owns it. On the reillustration of the ball field, in February I looked at the plans that were proposed, and I brought to your attention that the new walkway along the river was going to be at a level about 4 feet below the main part of the ball field at that point. The wall was going to be built there with a fence on top. And you told me that the plans are not written in stone, and you would look into it and see if it would be, the walkway and the field would be at the same level, not blocking any views of the river from the ball fields. Would you look into that again, or did you, or anybody look into that? Are the plans still the same? I'd like to get an answer on that. And on the main part of the ball field, there's no 4 feet of fill required to go there. Is that because of the drainage, or is it because of contamination? I'd like to answer that question too. Because you're gonna have to put a wall all around the main part of the ball field with a fence on it too, even if it's 1 or 2 feet high, so nobody falls off. And at the February meeting, you said, council said that it's not written in stone, and we'll look into it and see what it is.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Tom?
field and the so-called contaminated soil and the so-called illegal soil. There's a stark difference. The illegal soil was the illegal dumping that never received the initial permit. The contaminated soil, as far as Veterans Field, taking it from off-site to on-site storage and then used for the reclamation of roughly 6 acres of property. And that was for above surface conditions, of which there was an agreement made between the developer, their attorney, which is Mary's brother, Tom Hogan, and the town, Bob Regan and the town. There was a mutual understanding that that fill would be stored on what is presently located at the rec center, parking lot, and just the west side of the Little League. That fill, on no uncertain terms, was tested, retested, retested, and filled, graded, and put the jogging track as agreed upon, and in which thousands of people have enjoyed since that point in time. That's number one. Second of all, if, let's take the IGB leadership, or Venus and Hogan's argument, that it's contaminated, then I ask you a question. Knowing the fact that that field was only put on the east side of the new Little League field at that time, and the basketball court at that time, on the north side where you have the Peace Garden, to Waters Ave, why isn't that only area that confined? You folks know the answer as well as I do. It's green acres and a walkway. And Bardeen, led by Bardinas and Hogan, the independent coalition leadership shut this field down. And it's costing them millions, potential millions, for the remediation of it. Second of all, I also intrigued during this recent period of time, all the discussion on this affordable housing. State mandates don't work. Don't work. The co-op don't work. And I'll tell you why it doesn't work. And the girls are right. It does impose a monetary imposition of those communities throughout this 570, say New Jersey. Because it doesn't benefit the communities of which you folks are responsible for. You're responsible for your indigent or needy. Not the transits just to make a state quota. The girls are correct. And it's the one time I do agree with it. Their financial arguments, I don't. And here's why. You have to give a dissertation of all the monies, etc. The most recent, to my knowledge, is the sale of 15 Valley Place. At that time in '06, it was paying a little over $7,000. After the sale of the 3 units, and look at your records now, they're paying $3,300. All right? The owner of the property went to the bank, deposited $535,000 gross, and now you're paying the difference in the taxes from '06 till now. So if you want to be rational and be equalized throughout this whole argument, let's look at the most recent sale. Even prior to that, there were arguments by the same IGB leadership, independent coalition leadership, that they didn't like the developer's buyout. Do you remember prior to that? You had a buyout, or they had an option to pay a prorated dollar fee in lieu of getting your offsite. All right? They didn't like that. Back when we just operated under Mount Laurel, we got 40 units of affordable housing that was earmarked strictly, and I say strictly, for Edgewater residents only. Whether it was legal or not legal, we were doing it, and let those that wanted to object contest it. That was for our own police, fire, and road department. And then it went down to the public at large, and its whole purpose was to keep our people here in Edgewater, serving our people for the volunteer services that hopefully save the taxpayers' money. What did Hogan do? She got rid of all 40 units. Even though we had $2.5 million reserve performance, because she didn't like the site. And guess who she sold the property to? Guess who she sold the property to? Fred Davies. Does that ring a bell? her favorite topic. Thank you.
Anyone
Girl,
else wish
thank
to be
you.
heard?
I'm a girl.
Dennis?
Go to the mic.
At the last meeting, Dennis Gallagher, came on the terrace. At the last meeting, you mentioned that there's a possibility that you had some sort of agreement with the colony. Tell us what's going on with that.
5 minutes, Dennis.
Okay. I'm just stunned at what we listen to repeatedly here. I know this is an open thing, and anybody's allowed to say anything they want. But it's just amazing. Okay. I know that we have laws that say, or regulations that say how high, how wide, what you can do when you're, as far as our regulations. But it seems to me that there's wholesale disregard, or if there's any kind of mechanism in place, it's not really effective for some reason. A lot of what we're experiencing here, overcrowding and density on the roads and whatnot, it shouldn't be any mystery to anybody. It shouldn't be a surprise that what we have here. We do have the regulations. We put them into effect a long time ago, and it's just not enforced. And I don't understand why we're going on and on and on and acting like there's nothing we can do about it. We have the regulations. They're in force, and they're not, in fact, they're in place. They're not being enforced. And you sit up here, and you one body, there's another body that has another say in what happens. And I don't know if any of you have any, do you ever go to these meetings and see what's happening? Or, basically, I don't think one set of people is talking to the other or whatever, because what we're having here is not good for the creative community. Period. I mean, it's bad news what's going on here. And it's not going to get any better if we just sit here and say, well, we can't do anything about it. You're the guys that can do something about it. Please do. Thank you.
Valerie?
Valerie Bardina, 16 Hudson Terrace. I have a few questions about the resolutions. Were you intending to vote them as a group again, or were you going to discuss any of them tonight?
I believe that'll be up to whatever any council person would like to pull.
Okay. I see that you have two resolutions. One is 2012146, appointing provisionally crossing guards. Then you have 2012152, you have the finance, I guess for payroll clerk, appointing a payroll clerk, but there's no provisional. I did speak to Mr. Franz. He was gracious enough to return my call, and he advised me that no, indeed, you had not sent this down to civil service. Civil service, Mr. Lillaney, is the state workers form of sort of a union. So when you don't send it down to civil service and ask for a test, you have to hire provisionally, because this town is civil service, and I think, you know, you might be leaving yourself to a problem without the word provisional, because in one, you have provisional, and the other, it's not provisional, it's a permanent appointment. And if you do indeed call for a test, you know, and somebody scores 1 or 2, you know, the rule of 3, you're going to have to pick from one of those 3. So that was just an observation you might want to look into before you vote, or if you want to just add that word in. The other is 201-2168, where you're going to award Mr. Dives $500,000 towards construction of affordable housing. I just want to reiterate what Mary Hogan said, that how can you give somebody money for affordable housing when it hasn't been accepted as affordable housing by the state? And I've already heard Mr. Bosch's speech about the real need for affordable housing here. And I agree, we need affordable housing, but we need it done the proper way, because as we see, we've given money to certain units that were never accepted as affordable housing. That's why our COA has not been accepted for several years now, in fact. So before you vote to give the developer money, I would implore the council members who are actually going to vote on this to please think. The budget, our taxes are going up from just the municipal portion, 5%. The school budget was just passed, and the taxes, that will impact Edgewater taxpayers 12%. You haven't even got the numbers from the county yet. We're talking almost 20% raise in property taxes. Now, I know not every one of the council members own property, but I do. And most people I know do. And this is a hardship on them. There are record number of people out of work, record number of people trying to just keep a roof over their head, to pay their bills. And I think first of all, you're going to vote to give him a pilot program, which is actually a tax break, and now you're going to give him $500,000 to build his property. I just find it outrageous. Now, I wasn't intending to answer Mr. Tanzi, but since he seems that, it's political season and he wants to throw out slanderous statements, we've gone to court about this before, and I have to remind him that I am not a public official. He is setting himself up with a lawsuit, and possibly you guys too. First of all, the contamination in Veterans Field was dumped there by a developer at Shelter Bay. That developer went to jail. Mr. Tanzi was mayor at that time. Mr. Tanzi approved it. He got up in the meeting that you had at the community center and admitted it. He approved it. Mr. Tanzi went to jail. Mr. Tanzi went to jail for racketeering, for making bets with developers, making little deals. I have the transcripts, the FBI transcripts. I have several copies. If anybody would like to see them, read them, let me know. I will get them to you, because you just got to change the names. It seems like it's happening again. So in the future, if I was you, I would discount anything Mr. Tanzi has to say, because he comes to this table with dirty hands. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
No contamination.
Hearing none, I'll close the open public meeting.
We have toxins.
Phil, do you have a response for action being taken in the Mr. Henry's?
Yes, if I may, Mayor, I'd just like to make a couple of general comments. As you know, we are working with the Department of Environmental Protection concerning an issue involving the riparian land owned by the borough and docks that exist that have been there for decades, and the DEP has indicated their willingness to allow those docks to remain on the condition that the people that own them pay a fair rental value to the borough of Edgewater, and that money will be put into a trust fund and used to maintain other Green Acre properties throughout the borough. So with the guidance and approval of DEP, we are pursuing that. We have not reached a final agreement because there still are some issues about future docks and also how they are going to arrive at a fair market value. Those values have to be done in accordance with the guidelines established by COA. They have an approved list of appraisers that they will only authorize to make that calculation. We have engaged one of those experts. So that is part of the continuing conversation that we are having involving the colony and the borough. So hopefully, sometime in the future, we will have reached some accommodation, and all of that, of course, has been made known to the public. We've had several open meetings about that. The other issue, if I may touch on briefly, is the issue of our COA trust fund and our spending plan that we have submitted to the Council on Affordable Housing for permission from them as to how to spend those funds that we have accumulated in that fund. As you know, if those funds are not utilized, they will be, we will be obligated to return those to Trenton. So the state of New Jersey will use those for reasons that hasn't been disclosed to us. So the recent information that we have received from the Council on Affordable Housing is that if there is a project that meets COA's guidelines and will be deed restricted as per their requirements, we are allowed to use that trust fund money to assist in the construction of those affordable housing units. The project that has been referred to as Winterburn is a 100% affordable housing project. It will be regulated by COA and it will meet all their criteria. So it is, I believe, the wisdom of this council to use a portion of our trust funds to assist in the construction of those affordable housing units, because it has been pretty well recognized that the cost of constructing affordable housing is much more expensive than the actual return you get based on the restricted rents. So that is the purpose of that. We also have other projects we're looking at in order to use those funds in an appropriate way. But again, it's all subject to approval by COA, and if COA approves them, then there's no reason why we wouldn't do that. Other than that,
So Phil, excuse me, this is subject to approval by COA?
absolutely. Yes, our spending plan is currently, has been submitted to COA. We are waiting for them. It's being reviewed, and if they approve it, then we would implement that. But the information we received from COA is that you need to have an agreement in writing. You got to have it in place so that those funds can be protected, so they're not forfeited back to the state of New Jersey. So, and I believe it's the collective wisdom of the governing body that it's appropriate for the borough to use those funds in the borough of Edgewater,
Right.
and help build and construct.
Hence 2012, 168 and 169.
Absolutely, yes. Both of those projects are included in the spending program, and if COA approves them, then that money will be used. One is
Contingent on COA approval.
Yes, contingent on COA approval. The second project is the Edgewater Housing Authority, which they are engaged in rehabilitation of existing units that need complete upgrades, because it's been many, many years since they've, have been built, and, they require new appliances, new HVAC systems. So there's a whole list of, expense items that, again, will be subject to COA approval, and if it is approved, then those monies will be used for those purposes.
So we have, once again, that's why we have 168
Yes,
and
if we
169.
do not have an agreement in place, then those funds are not protected, and that money would then have to be returned to the state.
Have we lost money in the past, COA money in the past, to the state as a result of not acting promptly?
Well, I think this is the first time that we have legislation that is taking COA funds away from municipalities. There have been more flexibility in the past where a municipality
The answer to that question is no.
could provide for affordable housing in other towns, and there were those agreements, those interlocal agreements between them. But those have been removed, so this is what we're left with. So we're doing the best we can to use the money as appropriately as we can to achieve the goal of providing affordable housing. Thank you.
All right, Greg, do you have an answer for Mary in regards to the coal money and the account?
Yeah, Mayor, Mary had brought that issue up a couple of meetings ago. I have been reviewing the information as best I can. Again, like I had mentioned, all of our financial records have been audited by COA, satisfactory to them. As far as the monies in regard to these three projects. Again, I have to research it further. It all predates my tenure, and I have to just do a little more investigation as far as if in fact they were deposited and received by the borough, and if that was the case, what account they actually were placed into.
Stephanie, we had a question in regards to the ball field. The question, I believe, was on the...
Still open for the public.
The capping of the field, and is there a gate or fencing along the walkway? I believe that was the question. Are you familiar with, I believe it was brought up at the last work session.
Along the walkway, there's going to be a wall behind it, and then along that wall, there's going to be decorative fencing to prevent, people from being able to access that drop. It's going to be anywhere from 4 feet, and then it drops down and feathers back down to the existing grade.
And then as far as the grading is to cap the field as well as to provide for draining.
Right,
drainage.
the big ball field is actually being raised, and that was part of the plan initially, just to get it out of that flood elevation, so you don't have that constant influx of the Hudson River. So we wanted to get it above that 11 elevation to begin with, just so you wouldn't have constant flooding of the field. But it also serves, obviously, as a capping mechanism as well.
Stephanie, what's the elevation it's at now, and then what's it proposed to be?
If I recall correctly, it's at 7 now, and we want to get it above 11. So it's going to be 11, 12, I think at some portions 13, but it's to get it above the 11.
Speaking of my case, I'm having a hard time hearing them.
Mr. Mayor, can you?
Height of the raising.
The flood elevation is,
It's not speaking, turned on.
hello? We're looking to get it above the flood elevation of 11, so that's what the minimum elevation along the ball field is going to be, just to get it above that so you don't have that constant flooding.
And what's the elevation now?
It's 7.
Mr. Mayor, question regarding that subject.
Please.
We've had genuine concern about the old growth trees in the ball field since we began this project. We have said continually we're looking to save them, to make sure we do everything possible to retain them. A number of councilmen